So I'm going to show you how I analyze for the bones of the wrist for carpal tunnel, and this is Jeff. And say hi. There you go.
Hi.
And he's a good bass player, and if you know anything about playing guitar or bass is like one of the hardest instruments because you have to use, there's a lot of strength involved. So that type of motion is trouble. And then what do you do for business?
I own Mr. Softy.
Mr. Softy.
Ice cream truck.
The ice cream.
So physical.
So the motion, you're always
Pulling
doing
on
this. Yeah, so it's hard on the wrists. So I'm just going to show you how we use his wrist. And there are two bones right here. This little bump here is part of what's called the ulna, and this bone is the radius. And then you have 8 bones that are called carpals, and then you have 5 bones that are called metacarpals. And so there's 2 here, 8 here, 5 here. So there's literally 15 bones in this small space right here. So I'm going to show you how we analyze the motion, because if one of these bones essentially loses its normal motion, then it creates an inflammatory response and can start pinching off the nerve in the wrist. In carpal tunnel, usually a person will get symptoms into the wrist, and nighttime is usually the worst. So if I take these 2 bones, I'm going to take the radius and the ulna, and there's a joint in between where there's ligament. Ligament is like a tight rubber band that holds the bones together. And I'm going to stabilize one bone. I've got my whole hand on his radius. I'm going to take the ulna and I'm going to push down and let it go up. And actually, he's got good motion there. The bones should glide like this. That's what's normal. If the bones are restricted in any way or misaligned, you won't have normal motion. So you can literally, kind of let it relax, Jeff. You can literally see there's actually good motion in there. And this is not something that you can see on an x-ray or an MRI. It's something that has to be felt through a physical exam. So I'm just doing that, and there's good motion there. There are 8 bones. Now the first bone is called the scaphoid bone. And what I do is I know each individual bone and how the joints are oriented. And so we're able to know how they're supposed to move. So when a person takes their wrist back and forward like that, the bones are supposed to move, they're supposed to shift. So I'm going to just go through them. So I'm going to take the scaphoid, put my thumb there, I'm pushing in that direction, deviating the joint, and then having him go back and forth and analyzing the motion. So that's the scaphoid bone, and there's a little restriction at the bottom I could feel where it doesn't want to glide all the way. And then there's the lunate. The lunate bone is right there in the middle, and this bone usually will misalign by tilting like this, and then it creates an inflammatory response in the front. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take my thumb, I'm going to glide back and forth and see how the motions move. And there's a bit of restriction at the end on him. Then there's the bone called the triquetrum, and this bone here I'm going to push in that direction a little, push down, and then glide back and forth. And there's a little clicking, but the thing is that it's actually moving pretty good. And also there's a disc, very much like a meniscus in the knee. We have a disc right here in the wrist, and I'm going to check that by stabilizing the triquetrum and then moving that back and forth, and that actually moves very well on him. And then we have the bone called the pisiform bone, which is right here, and this is one that attaches to a muscle. The bone is actually inside a tendon in a muscle called the flexor carpi ulnaris. And I'm going to glide that one, that one's normal. And then we have a bone right here where the thumb attaches to this metacarpal called the triquetrum. I'm sorry, the trapezium. And I'm going to glide that one and see how that's moving. That's actually okay. It's the trapezium, then the trapezoid. Go back and forth. And then there's the large bone that connects to the lunate called the capitate. And I'm just going to fall right off the metacarpal, go back and forth. Again, we're analyzing motion, just like we analyze motion in the spine, doing that in the wrist. And then lastly, a hamate bone, and that's actually normal. So now, after the adjustment, I'm just going to take the same bone and then analyze the motion and see how well it moves. And what we're looking for is better motion. With better motion of the joints, if the joints function normally, over time there'll be less inflammation of that area. And that's how we analyze that area.
When I first came in, I was getting numbness and tingling every time I picked up the bass, basically.
Yeah.
And every night, and over probably the course of just 2 months, it really started to go away.
So you can play better?
I can play, and we rehearsed for 3 hours last night, no tingling or anything. Sleeping better.
So before it was,
You took me off the braces and gave me some other ideas how to stabilize my wrist at night.
Oh, with the,
frankly, using electrical tape, which has worked
yeah,
great.
so another thing is people don't like those braces because they're uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So there's a way to actually tape the wrist and give the same support as a brace. We
I
just
think
use
that's been
electrical
helping,
tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just put electrical tape around, he does it himself, and it works. So, and then sleeping, did you
Sleeping's
notice
been-
it bad
it's-
sleeping before?
Yeah, before, and now I've actually slept through the night several times without any numbness lately, so.
Very cool. Yay.
I feel like I'm just on, maintenance now.
Yeah, well, you are.